For much of human history, violence was a constant presence. Tribes battled for territory and resources. Empires rose and fell through conquest. Individuals often resorted to force to settle disputes. This violence was considered a normal part of life. It shaped societies and influenced the course of history. In his book, The Better Angels of Our Nature, Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker argues that we are living in the most peaceful time in human history. This claim may seem surprising, given the daily news reports of wars, crime, and terrorism. However, Pinker backs up his argument with a wealth of historical data and analysis. He shows that despite our impressions, rates of violence have been steadily declining for centuries. This decline is evident in various forms of violence, from war and genocide to homicide and torture. Pinker's work challenges our assumptions about the inevitability of violence and offers hope for a more peaceful future. To understand the decline of violence, we need to look at the numbers. Numbers have a way of revealing truths that are often hidden in plain sight. They tell us stories that words alone cannot convey. Historical data reveals a stark contrast between the past and the present. By examining these numbers, we can see how far we've come as a society. For instance, in pre-state societies, as much as 15% of deaths were caused by violence. This was a time when survival often depended on brute strength and territorial disputes were settled through bloodshed. Today, even with modern warfare, that number is a fraction of a percent. Advances in technology, diplomacy, and international relations have played significant roles in reducing these numbers. Similarly, homicide rates in Europe have plummeted since the Middle Ages. Back then, life was harsh, and justice was often swift and brutal. While several hundred murders per 100,000 people were not uncommon in the past, the lack of effective law enforcement and judicial systems contributed to these high rates. Today that number is closer to 1 per 100,000. Modern policing, forensic science, and a more structured legal system have all contributed to this dramatic decline. These statistics, while startling, paint a clear picture. Violence in all its forms is becoming increasingly rare. This trend is a testament to human progress and our collective efforts to create a safer, more peaceful world. By understanding the numbers, we can appreciate the strides we've made and continue to work towards a future where violence is an anomaly rather than a norm. What explains this remarkable decline in violence? Pinker identifies several contributing factors, one of the most significant being the rise of the modern nation-state. Governments, with their monopolies on the legitimate use of force, have played a crucial role in reducing violence. By establishing law and order, courts, and systems of punishment, states have created a deterrent to violence. They have also provided alternative mechanisms for resolving disputes, reducing the need for individuals to resort to force. The power of commerce trade's influence on peace. Another key factor in the decline of violence is the expansion of trade and commerce. As Pinker points out, trade encourages cooperation and interdependence among individuals and groups. When people are engaged in mutually beneficial economic relationships, they have a strong incentive to maintain peace. Trade also fosters communication and understanding between different cultures, reducing fear and mistrust that can lead to conflict. The growth of global trade in recent centuries has undoubtedly contributed to a more peaceful world. Expanding minds, reducing violence. The impact of education. Education is another powerful force for peace. As people become more educated, they tend to be more critical thinkers, more empathetic towards others, and more likely to embrace non-violent solutions to problems. Education helps to broaden our perspectives, making us less susceptible to prejudice and propaganda that can incite violence. Furthermore, education empowers individuals and promotes social mobility, reducing inequality and frustration that can contribute to violence. The global expansion of education in recent centuries has undoubtedly played a role in creating a more peaceful world. The Rights Revolution, a turning point in human history. The 20th century witnessed a profound shift in values with the rise of human rights movements. These movements were not just isolated events, but part of a larger, global awakening to the importance of equality and justice for all. The horrors of World War II, in particular, led to a widespread recognition of the inherent dignity and worth of all individuals. The atrocities committed during the war, including the Holocaust, served as a grim reminder of what happens when human rights are ignored. This recognition fueled movements for civil rights, women's rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Susan B. Anthony, and Harvey Milk became symbols of these struggles, inspiring millions to fight for their rights. These movements challenged discriminatory practices and promoted equality. They sought to dismantle the systemic barriers that had long oppressed marginalized communities, advocating for laws and policies that would ensure equal treatment for all. As societies have increasingly embraced the principles of human rights, they have become less tolerant of violence and oppression. This shift has led to more inclusive communities where people of different backgrounds can live and work together harmoniously. This shift in values represents a significant step forward in human moral progress and has contributed to a more just and peaceful world. The ongoing efforts to promote human rights continue to shape our societies, reminding us that the fight for equality is far from over, but is a journey worth undertaking. Empathy and reason, the cognitive roots of peace. In this chapter, we delve into the profound psychological shifts that have contributed to a more peaceful world. Pinker argues that the decline of violence is not merely a product of external factors like government or trade. While these elements certainly play a role, they are not the sole drivers of this significant change. He also points to a change in human psychology, specifically the expansion of our circles of empathy and our capacity for reason. This shift in mindset has allowed us to see others not as adversaries but as fellow human beings deserving of compassion and understanding. As our ability to understand and empathize with others grows, we become less likely to condone violence against them. Empathy bridges the gap between different cultures, religions, and ideologies, fostering a sense of global community. Simultaneously, our capacity for reason allows us to see beyond immediate conflicts and recognize the long-term benefits of cooperation and peace. Reason helps us to weigh the consequences of our actions, promoting strategies that lead to mutual benefit rather than destruction. This cognitive evolution has played a crucial role in reducing violence and fostering a more humane world. By understanding the cognitive roots of peace, we can continue to nurture these qualities within ourselves and our societies, paving the way for a future where peace is not just an ideal, but a reality. The journey towards peace is ongoing, and it requires continuous effort and commitment. By embracing empathy and reason, we can build a world where conflicts are resolved through dialogue and understanding, rather than violence and aggression. Let us strive to expand our circles of empathy and enhance our capacity for reason, ensuring that the cognitive roots of peace take firm hold in every corner of the globe. Together, we can create a more peaceful and compassionate world for future generations. Examples of a more peaceful world. The evidence for the decline of violence is not just statistical, it is also evident in numerous real-world examples. The abolition of slavery, the decline of dueling, the decreasing acceptance of torture, and the growing movement to abolish the death penalty are all testaments to this progress. These changes reflect a fundamental shift in our attitudes towards violence, a growing recognition that it is not an acceptable solution to problems. While violence still exists, its decreasing prevalence is a cause for hope and a reminder of how far we have come. The future of violence. Reasons for optimism. While violence has not been eradicated entirely, the historical trend is clear. We are living in a far less violent world than our ancestors. This progress should not be taken for granted, however. Challenges remain, and new forms of violence may emerge. Yet understanding the factors that have contributed to the decline of violence can guide us in building a more peaceful future. By strengthening institutions that promote peace, fostering economic interdependence, promoting education and empathy, and upholding human rights, we can continue to create a world where violence is increasingly rare. A call to action, building a less violent future. The decline of violence is not inevitable. It requires constant effort and vigilance. We must actively challenge injustice, promote understanding, and address the root causes of conflict. By learning from the past and working together, we can create a future where violence is not the norm, but a tragic aberration. The future is not predetermined, it is ours to create. Let us choose to build a world where peace prevails, and where all people can live free from fear.